Greetings and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team video, where today I'm going over how to use your Warhammer 40,000 army in Kill Team. But before we get into things, please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of today's video if you found it useful and helpful. And remember, I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below for free, an affiliate link at Element Games, and an affiliate and discount code at Crossfire Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. But yeah, let's get on with the video. So today I'm going over how you can use your Warhammer 40,000 collection in Kill Team. So this is just mainly a guide ideally for new players trying to experiment with Kill Team, or people who already have 40k armies that they want to try out with using factions they haven't already purchased into. So it's just a stepping stone. It's not going to aim to build like a competitive Kill Team from this collection. If you are trying to do that, I would recommend like my one box guide, trying to go from that. And I won't cover every Kill Team. I'll only cover those with direct Warhammer 40,000 parallels. So for example, I won't cover Nemesis Claw because there's no Night Lord's army and stuff like that. So it won't mention every Kill Team. It will mention every Kill Team that can be represented by a Warhammer 40,000 army. Now, if you're new to Kill Team, a good thing to check out is the Kill Team official app, because all the faction rules for Kill Team, as in every individual Kill Team, is free for access on the Warhammer community website, as well as the Kill Team app. The only thing you'll need to do is get the core rules, but you can either do that from borrowing from a friend, your local gaming store, or, other online methods. But generally having all the faction rules available to access for free means it's easier for you to see what you need to convert from your collection. There will be some proxying to a certain extent, because otherwise, if you go crazy with proxying, you might as well just use anything. But it's ideally saying you won't be able to build the most competitive version of your Kill Team from your collection, but this is what you can do to get around it, either like saying this model counts as Y, or using stuff like rubber bands to go like, okay, I've got all the specialists I can represent, and this model with the red rubber band is this specialist. Then base sizes are important, and you might need base extenders for some models, especially if they're older models, because a lot of older miniatures are on 25mm bases, whereas more modern day Games Workshop / Kill Team miniatures are on larger bases. And you can find the base size of each operative in the bottom right hand corner of their data card, which is a nice addition. Very, very useful if you're trying to keep an eye on that, because base sizes are important when it comes to Kill Team. And then also it'll probably be easier for newer 40k players or more active recent 40k players than older ones, because before 10th edition you kind of were trying to min-max your teams, like your units, not trying to build everything, whereas in 10th edition you can basically build your entire loadout. You're not punished for that. So if you're a more newer 40k player, you'll basically probably have built these options anyway, whereas older players are unlikely to. And if you're a newer competitive 40k player, you've already likely bought these kits regardless. So those are some basic guidelines to make what's coming ahead more easier to understand and represent. Starting off with Space Marines, the easiest of Kill Teams, you've got Phobos Strike Team. So this is effectively the Phobos Armor Primaris Space Marines, like the stealth reconnaissance ones. So all you need to represent this Kill Team are Primaris Reavers, Phobos Infiltrators, and Phobos Incursors, because they're all in Phobos armor. They're actually very easy to represent because there's not many specialists that you need. You may require proxying for the Infiltrators and Incursor specialists, such as with the Marksman, but you'll likely already have the Medic, and generally you can just use rubber bands to represent who is who if you're using older Space Marine collections. And, you should have access to these if you have a Space Marine army. Generally quite straightforward. It's the benefit of being a White Dwarf team, because they weren't really a kill team. The Incursors were, but they were built from basically combining with the Reavers. And the Reavers have no specialists. They just have the Reaver and the Reaver Sergeant. So it should be quite straightforward. Very easy if you're a Space Marine player. Then you'll have Angels of Death. You'll need Intercessors, Assault Intercessors, a Captain with a Power Fist and Plasma Pistol, an Eliminator, a Heavy Intercessor with a Heavy Bolter. So this is the main Space Marine kill team for Warhammer 40,000. It's easy to represent if you already had the starter set / easy build models, but even if you don't, as long as you have those miniatures, they're very easy to build from a 40k collection. In fact, Angels of Death are one of the easiest kill teams to run if you already had a Warhammer 40,000 army. It's super straightforward, almost like they made it intentional. which is, you know, good and bad. But, you know, the only specialists you kind of have to keep in mind of are the Assault Grenadier. But if you've built Assault Intercessors, you've built an Assault Intercessor with the Grenade Strap anyway. And if you are running the Gunner from the Intercessors with the Grenade Launcher, because, as I said, if you're a more recent 40k player, Auxiliary Grenade Launchers are now free on normal Intercessors. You've probably got that already. And even if you don't have, like, the specific Sergeants, you can just use Captain models to represent each Sergeant. But otherwise, if you're a Space Marine player trying to dip into Warhammer 40,000, it's very easy and straightforward. Coming to the Adeptus Mechanicus, they have one kill team you can represent, which is Hunterclade. For the Hunterclade, you'll need Skitarii Rangers, Skitarii Vanguard, Sicaran Infiltrators, and Sicaran Ruststalkers. This is a 10 operative kill team, so you basically need a mix of those. There are no unique specialists, which, because this is a White Dwarf team, means it's very easy to port from Warhammer 40,000. You've likely built all the options, and to be honest, no one really cares what the Rangers and Vanguard are, as long as you just tell your opponent at the start. And oddly, it's one of the easiest kill teams you can represent if you are a Warhammer 40,000 player, because literally you just put down the models. It was one of those teams that was made to kind of get people, well, get more factions into Kill Team when they got the new when they had their new edition in 2021. Coming on to the Astra Militarum, you've got the Death Corps of Krieg, which used to be the Veteran Guardsmen. Now, if you want to run them as Death Corps, you'll need the Death Corps Trooper box. Or, if you don't want to use Death Corps, you can actually use any 10-man infantry box, so like Cadians, or even Catachans, as well as Vostrians, whatever you have in your collection, because this is basically the Guardsman kill team. It's very easy / difficult based on your collection. Like, if you're a newer player, it may be harder, but even as an older player, it's fine. The only issue you'll be having is trying to represent more unique models, like namely the Demo Trooper with his landmine. But otherwise, it's very, very straightforward. And, you know, a lot of people have already converted their kill teams from like Cadians. So if you're an Astra Militarum player, this is quite easy to represent over. You just basically have to swap your models out in your collection for this kill team, and then you can start running and punishing people for trying to defy the Emperor. Kazakin are also very straightforward. You literally just need Kazakin. This should also be very easy for people with Astra Militarum collections, as you'll likely have everything already, because Kazakin used to be very, very good when they were launched in their plastic form for 40k. So Astra Militarum players likely have a lot of Kazakin already, and even if you have the older meta Kazakins, you just need base extenders. There's not many specialists you need to worry about, because you've got a comms, which generally everyone has a comms, and then you've got the medic, and Kazakin always had medics. You'll have a bit of a problem with like the Demolition Trooper, basically the guy that looks like Fat Man from Metal Gear Solid 2, and if you've come from like 9th edition 40k, you probably haven't built everyone, but Kazakin are just a very, very, very easy and straightforward kill team to represent, easier to do than the Death Corps of Krieg. But otherwise, as the Astra Militarum collection player, your collection should be large enough to easily field either or both of the aforementioned kill teams. Continuing on, we've got Tempestus Aquilans. Now, I know I'm cheating here, but you will need a box of Tempestus Aquilans. And the only reason I've mentioned them is because they used to be very, very, very competitive for Warhammer 40,000 up until like the last balanced data slate. And even then, they're not bad. Because, yeah, if you're a recent 40k competitive player, you likely already have at least 10 of the Tempestus Aquilans, probably more. And if you're an older player, you actually may have Elysian Drop Troopers, which you can use instead. And then if you're trying to represent the Servo Sentry, you can just use something like a Tarantula or not run it. So it's actually quite straightforward, depending if you're more recent as a competitive 40k player, and if you have a more extensive older collection, if you bought the old Forge World Elysian Drop Troopers, then you can actually run the Tempestus Aquilans. But if you were doing that, if you're using Elysians, you'd need base extenders, because they would probably be on 25mm bases, whereas all the Tempestus Aquilans are on 28mm. Continuing with the armies of the Imperium, we have Inquisitorial Agents. This is very complex, and the only reason I really include them is because they're actually an army now. And if you want to run them the easy way, you'll need an Inquisitorial Agent box, then either 5 Tempestus Scions or 5 Sisters of Silence for a basic team. But it's actually kind of easier if you have a more extensive Inquisition like army, because if you have all the older like 3rd edition and 4th edition metal models, you can actually quite easily represent the individual Inquisition models, especially if you're like a Necromunda player. So this is a very weird one where it's more beneficial for older players who have all those old like miniature metal models that you used to be able to get when they were like in Codex, Demon Hunter and Witch Hunter, which is really nice. And then you can kind of just cannibalize the rest of your Imperial factions to run as a kill team. I won't really mention stuff like Exaction, you know, the RBTs and stuff like that, and Imperial Navy, because they don't really run as analogues for Warhammer 40,000 unless you bought Exaction when they were cheap troop choices for your army. But generally, if you're running armies of the Imperium, it's actually more beneficial if you were an older player with all those old metal models. But even as a newer player, if you've like dabbed into armies of the Imperium with Inquisition, you've probably already bought a box of the 5 Imperial agents, which will be very easy to run as a kill team for Warhammer 40,000, as long as you have either double of that box or the ability to sub in, as I said, with 5 Tempestus Scions or 5 Sisters of Silence. You don't have any specialist and can be used quite easily. Moving on to Chaos Space Marines. For the first Chaos Space Marine kill team, we have Legionary. You'll just need your basic Chaos Space Marines, like your Chaos Legionnaires. If you didn't already own the kill team box, so like if you didn't buy the Legionary box, then you'll need a Sorcerer to run as the Balefire Acolyte, and then a Possessed model to run as the Anointed. Now, these models will likely be on 40mm bases, which is annoying unless you're running older Possessed and older Sorcerers, because they should be on 32mm. But if you're just testing this out to play with friends and see if you actually like kill team, then the base size doesn't matter too much. But otherwise, it's a very straightforward kill team because most of the specialists are very easy to represent. You know, you've got like your Plasma Gunner, your like Heavy Gunner if you're running a Heavy Bolter, which will be very easy to represent. The Shrive Talon you can just run as any normal like operative, and the leader is basically one of your sergeants. And you can even sub in Chosen to represent the specialists. Like you could use someone like with Lightning Claws to represent the Shrive Talon. So it's very, very easy to run and quite straightforward, and it benefits from being quite strong at the moment as well. So a very easy swap. Then for Chaos, we also have Chaos Cult. So to run the Chaos Cult kill team, you'll need a box of Chaos Cultists, Accursed Cultists, and Dark Commune. So this is actually super easy if, once again, you're a more recent or / competitive 40k player, because you likely have lots and lots and lots of these models, because they used to be very important for competitive lists. And even then, it was always worth running at least, you know, a squad of Chaos Cultists, Accursed Cultists, and Dark Commune. So it's otherwise very, very easy. So if you've just like... this is generally, you can overlap both kill teams, because if you are a Chaos Space Marine player, your collection is usually large enough to run both Legionary and Chaos Cult. So you've got a really good expansive way to run kill teams there, and very easy. Chaos Cult is super easy because they have no specialists. It's just everything you get in the box, which is very easy to translate, and you should have tons of them. They are, if you're a 40k player, the Chaos Cult are more of a melee force. They don't really have any ranged weapons, where Legionary are more your all-round force, specializing in melee, but also having lots of close-range firepower, with the ability to tech into long-range firepower as well. So easy selections for either player. Breaking down into the individual Chaos Legions, we've got Death Guard. So if you're a Death Guard player, the faction you can run are Plague Marines. They are the Nurgle Chaos Space Marine kill team. You'll need either the easy to build Death Guard models, which you can get from the starter set or before when they're released earlier, or you'll need a box of Plague Marines and a Plague Marine Sorcerer. This is because you can effectively build everyone else from the box of Plague Marines. You can even build the Icon Bearer. The Icon Bearer is quite tall if you're running the normal Death Guard, like Plague Marine kill team, if you're using the easy to build model. But, you know, you're just playing for like just getting in or using it as a gateway, so no one really minds too much. The only problem will just be getting a Plague Marine Sorcerer, but if you're an established 40k player with Death Guard, you'll likely have lots of models to use as your Death Guard Sorcerer for Plague Marines. And once again, it makes it a very easy 40k analog team. While it does have a lot of unique specialists, all of them can be built from a normal box of Plague Marines. So even if you can't get the easy to build models, you likely already have all these models in your collection because they're useful specialists regardless. So that's great. If you're a Death Guard player, you've got a really easy team to represent in kill team. They don't have to buy any models for, and they're quite good and powerful at the moment, at least at the time of this video. For Thousand Suns players, you have Warp Coven. They are your Tzeentch kill team. To represent the Warp Coven, you'll need Zangors, Exalted Sorcerers, and Rubric Marines, because the kill team composition is generally 3 Sorcerers, then a mix of Rubrics and Zangors, so this is everything in your army already. Like, ideally you need the Exalted Sorcerers, and you actually can use one of the Sorcerers from the Rubric Marines, so that's always in your collection. And once again, there's no specialists. All you're running is just the models as is. The only thing I think you'll miss is just you don't have the Mutant Zangor as a specialist that you can just run that as like a normal melee Zangor. So you don't need to, like, the only thing you really need to worry about when you're Zangors is just one with a big weapon and then like either bolt pistol and chainsword or like paired hand weapons. But otherwise, this is very straightforward to represent. It's still a very difficult kill team to play, but that kind of mirrors how they work in 40k, where they're not the easiest army to play either. So if you're a Thousand Suns player, once again, you've got a very easy way to get into the game of kill team. Moving on to Xenos factions, we have Aeldari. So starting off with Aeldari, namely Craftworld, we've got Blades of Cain. This is the Craftworld Aeldari kill team. So you'll need Striking Scorpions, Dire Avengers, and Howling Banshees. This team is an amalgam of Aspect Warriors with a single Exarch as a leader who can run even if you're running like Striking Scorpions, Dire Avengers, and Howling Banshees, you can choose like a Howling Banshee Exarch, a Dire Avenger Exarch, or a Striking Scorpion Exarch. If you're an Aeldari player, this is very, very easy, especially if you've updated to the new plastic models. If you're using the old metal ones, you will have to use base adapters, because remember, the older ones are on 25mm bases, the new ones are on 28mm bases, and for the Exarchs, you just have to decide what loadout you have each game and just let your opponent know, because, if you've got the plastic kits, then you can represent like the Mirror Swords more easy, or like the Tri-Skelly, as well as the Chain Sabers, and you generally should have plastic Dire Avengers regardless. But if you're an Aeldari player, it's very easy to run Blades of Cain, like super easy, yeah, especially with the recent influx of new plastic models. And you can even use Autarchs as Exarchs if you want, but you don't really need to. And yeah, that's a very easy, straightforward swap from 40k. Then you also have Void Dancer Troop, which are the Harlequin kill team. Now, to run the Void Dancer Troop, you'll need a Harlequin Troop, so 6 models of those, a Death Jester, and a Shadow Seer. You don't necessarily need the Death Jester and Shadow Seer, but because boxes of Harlequins come in 6 and it's an 8 model kill team, you will need basically everything I've mentioned there. And it's once again a very easy team to represent. You just have to figure out who has the special weapons, because you can have 1 Neuro pistol and then 1 fusion pistol for the kill team max, and then you have the Troop Master as your leader, which once again, if you're an Aeldari player, you have all of these in your collection generally, especially if you're a Harlequin player. And actually, if you're a general Craftworld player, you'll be able to represent both kill teams because, well, Harlequins have kind of been absorbed into the Craftworld Codex. So once again, very easy for you to dip into kill team if you're an established Aeldari player. Going on to Drukhari, we have Hand of the Archon. So you'll just need Kabalite Warriors. They're just 9 Kabalite Warriors. Some specialists are very easy to represent because you've got the Blaster. You can have a Gunner who has a Blaster or Shredder. Then you have a Heavy Gunner who has the Dark Lance or Splinter Cannon, and then you have Agents, which are your normal Kabalite Warriors, and then you can just run, like Cyberites as your leaders. The only specialist that will be quite awkward to run if you haven't bought the Hand of the Archon will be the Crimson Duelist, which you can use as a witch because it also has the chain blade. And then as a rack, you can use that to represent the Flayer, because the Flayer is effectively more of a rack, homunculus aligned Kabalite warrior. It does require a bit more proxying, and you might need to use more rubber bands, especially when it comes to stuff like the Sky Splinter Assassin, so the Kabalite warrior with the bird and the Shard Carbine. But generally, it's actually a quite straightforward kill team, and if you don't want to run those specialists, you can just run them as agents. But otherwise, it's a very thematic Drukhari kill team. And then also, if you're a Drukhari player, you have the Mandrakes kill team. And for the Mandrakes, you need Mandrakes. If you have the updated kit, there's no issue because, they'll be on 28mm bases. You'll be able to build the specialists because they don't really do anything in 40k, so you have no reason not to build them. Older models will need base adapters and rubber bands because the older models are on 25mm bases. Oddly, they're almost the same height as the new plastic one, so there's not too much of a difference there. But for the 5 unique operatives, so the 5 specialists, such as the leader and so on, you will need to use rubber bands to represent who is who if you don't have the new rack kit. But otherwise, once again, the Aeldari players are doing very well when it comes to representing in Kill Team. This is harder to represent for Drukhari players than it is with when it comes to Craftworld players, but it's still pretty straightforward, which is nice, once again, because Aeldari players keep on winning. Moving on to Genestealer Cult. So Genestealer Cults actually have 2 kill teams they can select from. The first one is the Wormblade kill team. So for the Wormblade kill team, you'll need Neophyte Hybrids, the Kellamorph, Locus, and Sanctus. Now, from the Kellamorph, Locus, and Sanctus, you only need 2 of those because you can only run 2 of those per game. And obviously the Sanctus can be run as either the melee or sniper Sanctus. But otherwise you have no specialists, you just have 10 Neophyte Hybrids and then 2 of your Cult Agents. And, you know, you've got 2 Neophyte Gunners, 2 Heavy Gunners, and then you have like the Icon. Generally stuff you should already have had built. And because you're a Genestealer Cult player, you probably have like technically, like 6 to 8 squads of Wormblade already. So that should be very easy for you to run. Next, it comes to the more difficult Brood Brother squad. So for the Brood Brother kill team, you need Brood Brothers, either the old or the new Brood Brothers. So the old Brood Brothers were an upgrade sprue for the old plastic Cadians, and the new Brood Brothers are the new upgrade sprue for the new plastic Cadians. And then you'll need the Brood Coven box. So the Brood Coven is the Patriarch, the Primus, and the Magus with the 2 familiars. Because generally, if you're a Genestealer Cult player, you already have the Brood Coven selection. The only difficult part will come with the Brood Brothers themselves. Because generally you'll have all the specialists outside of the very unique ones. You probably already have an Icon, but you may not have a Knife Fighter, as well as a guy carrying a giant piece of grenade or dynamites. So that you'll probably either pass upon or just use rubber bands. But for a Genestealer Cult player, generally you should have everything I've mentioned on screen, and it should be a quite straightforward swap. The more harder team to represent will be Brood Brothers, because Brood Brothers generally aren't that great in Warhammer 40,000, so Wormblade will probably be the easier choice. But if you're looking for a more long-term investment, try Brood Brothers instead. But otherwise, still very nice for Genestealer Cult players trying to get into Kill Team. Now we have Leagues of Votann. They're technically Xenos, which annoys me greatly. So for the Halfkin Salvager Kill Team, you'll just need Halfkin Warriors. The only difficult one to represent will be the Jump Pack Warrior, which you can see on screen, because it has a giant jump pack, and to my knowledge, there are no League of Votann units that are jump packed yet. So maybe in the future one day. But otherwise, this is very easy to represent. Once again, the Halfkin box itself for the Halfkin Warriors comes with most of the options. The only stuff you may not be able to build will be like the Grenade Belt Warrior and the Dozer, the guy with the fists. But once again, if you were running those, you can just use rubber bands on normal warriors to represent who is who. You'll generally have everyone else, and it's very easy to run. Like, the main annoyance is the Jump Pack Warrior, because there is no Jump Pack Warrior equivalent for 40k yet. But as it stands, rubber bands, and maybe when your opponent, if you were trying to proxy the Jump Pack Warrior, you can just tell your opponent, like, every time they're trying to shoot or look at them, you can say they're always valid, because the Jump Pack Warrior is effectively twice the height of a normal Halfkin. Then you have Harnkin Jaegers, who are the second kill team for the Leagues of Votann. Now, this is cheating because you'll need Harnkin Jaegers because they're a new plastic kit. But if you're a competitive 40k player, you already likely have a squad or 2 of Harnkin Jaegers, and Leagues of Votann are a very new army, so they don't really have an old collection. Sure, you could be using the old metal squats, and at that point, just go crazy. But this should be an easy tap into if you're trying to get into Kill Team or interested in playing Kill Team and you already have a Leagues of Votann army. It's one of the benefits of having a new army because you'll effectively have all these kits already, so it should be quite straightforward. It's just a bit difficult when it comes to, once again, the Halfkin Salvagers with the Jump Pack Warrior, but otherwise it's a really good way to get into Kill Team if you're a Votann player. For Necrons, you have one singular Kill Team, and that's Hierotek Circle. So this is a really weird kill team to represent from your 40k collection, because you'll need Immortals, Death Marks, the Cryptek, Psychomancer, and Chronomancer. So for this kill team, you have your leader as either the Cryptek, Psychomancer, or Chronomancer, so you can run one of them. You don't need all 3, but if you're trying to play multiple games, you want to swap out who you can run. You can use the Royal Warden as the Despo tech, because the Despo tech is basically a slightly better immortal. And then you can use a Plasmancer as an Apprentech, although generally you can just rubber band this if you don't have access to a Plasmancer. And then for the 2 plasma sites, you can use any plasma sites. The only issue with this is the plasma sites in the Hyrotech Circle Kill Team box are in 25mm bases, whereas the ones in the 40k armies are in 32mm bases or 28mm bases. So you're going to have quite the base disparity when it comes to sides, base size. But otherwise, ignoring the plasma sites, it's a very straightforward kill team to represent. The Apprentech can be a bit difficult if you don't have a Plasmancer, but as I said, you can have rubber bands. But regardless, you just have this. It's all your entire collection. So it's obviously easier if you buy the Hyrotech Circle box, but if you don't have the Hyrotech Circle, this is the avenue. Oddly, quite annoying and complex, kind of mimicking how Necrons actually work, but you still have a nearly straightforward way to test out your kill team from your Warhammer 40,000 collection as a Necron player. For Orks, Orks also have 2 kill teams in Kill Team. Starting off with Commandos, you will need Ork Commandos. This is very easy if you have the current plastic kit, because, you know, you were encouraged to build every option from the get-go, and there's no benefit or no downside not to. And it's harder if using the old metal models, because you will still have like a bomb squiggle too, but you'll be locked into, well, everyone will just have choppers, which is fine, you know, nothing wrong with that. But if you have the new plastic kit, which most Ork players do, very easy and straightforward, because Commandos are still quite useful when it comes to the 40k sphere. For Wrecker Crew, these are your tank busters, and you will need tank busters. They're a brand new kit, and once again I'm cheating, but allow me, because a lot of Ork players already have Wrecker Crew, which they're using as tank busters in 40k, and even if you have the old metal models, you can still use them in Kill Team. Now generally if you're running them in 40k and using the old metal models, they're all going to be the rocket mode. Like, you may have the knob with like the dual rocket pistols if you've got the new plastic kit, but even then running them as all shooting isn't going to be too hard. And if you're using the old metal models, you just need 2 random squigs, which you can just get from anywhere. But otherwise, Wrecker Crew are technically easy / difficult. A lot of Ork players have, as I said, already bought the new Wrecker Crew kit to run as Wrecker Crew, so then you just have to switch them into 40k, well, into Kill Team, which is no issue. So generally Orks need a little bit more work compared to other factions, but it's not as difficult as you would think. And once again, if you are trying to proxy different specialists from like either Commandos locked into Sluggers and Choppers, or Wrecker Crew locked into rocket models because you didn't buy any other models, you could just use rubber bands, and then that should cover your bases if you just want to get a feel for those models before you either go converting them or invest in buying them. Ignore that. For Tau Empire actually have 3 kill teams, you lucky devils. So starting off, you have the Pathfinder kill team, which you'll need Pathfinders and drones for. The normal box effectively already comes with all the specialists, and you know, if you're trying to use some of the other specialists and you don't want to buy or convert any more models, rubber bands fix everything. They fix all the holes. So rubber bands will be your boon, but otherwise this is a very straightforward kill team to represent. It's not the best, and it's going to be quite hard to play, but if you want to get a feel for how Pathfinders are in kill team, then just use your Pathfinders. Then we've got Farstalker Kinband. Once again, this is kind of cheating because you can use the Farstalker Kinband box if you already have it, or if you haven't invested in those, because currently, you know, one or two units of Farstalkers were quite good as screening units in 40k, but if not, you can use Kroot Carnivores, Kroot Hounds, and a Kroot Shaper to represent the kill team. If you're going via the Carnivores, Hounds, and Shaper option, you will need to use rubber bands on the Carnivores to represent different specialists, but otherwise that's an easy way to proxy stuff, because they'll all be on the right base sizes. Once again, it's easy if you already own the Farstalkers for 40k because you're using them competitively, but otherwise you still have a more viable option if you don't, but it will just be more confusing just with rubber bands. Then you also have the Vespid kill team, so you'll need Vespids and a single drone. Once again, if you've bought the new Vespid kit, easy. If you're using older Vespids, you will just need base adapters because they were on 25mm bases and they're now on 28. And then you can just use any drone to represent the oversight drone. Otherwise, it's very easy to run. It's oddly easier than the Kroot are, but it's not too bad. You'll just have to use rubber bands for specialists if using the old metal / resin models. But otherwise, if you're a Tau Empire player, you have a lot of different kill teams you can build out from your factions, which aren't too difficult to do and are quite easy if you just want to see how kill team is as a Tau Empire player. So for the overview, it's actually pretty easy to run your 40k collection as a kill team. This is helped by the fact that a lot of kill teams were mostly just upgrade sprues to existing Warhammer 40,000 kits, or were White Dwarf teams. So these are factions where they were just kind of drawing different 40k units together to make a single kill team. So that makes it really, really straightforward to convert your 40k collection into a kill team. Obviously with Miss Compendium, that was a nice gateway into kill team, but kill team is no longer a gateway into 40k. So that's why those are effectively gone. But it's still easy for you to try and get into kill team from your 40k collection. There's still a bit of work, like it's not super easy, especially if you have a more smaller, concise collection. This is when it'll come down to using base adapters as well as rubber bands. So you're proxying more than you would like, but especially when you're just going like, I've heard a lot about kill team, I want to get used to it. There's nothing wrong with proxying using rubber bands, not using the correct middles, as long as you have the right faction, just to get a feel for the game. And obviously the free faction rules for kill team make it so much easier. The fact you can just go on the app or the Warhammer community app's website, look at your chosen faction, see the rules, see the base sizes, see how many models you need, and then go from there. And then you can use this video to see when you select that specific faction, what you will actually need to pull from your collection to run as those kill teams. So it's actually fairly straightforward, although 40k and kill team have kind of separated quite heavily. You know, we're still unfortunately missing like certain factions that don't have representation anymore, such as I didn't mention Sisters of Battle, like Adeptus Mechanicus, because novitiates aren't really used in 40k, and there's no really 40k analog outside of using novitiates. We don't have a Tyrannid kill team. I didn't mention the upcoming Khorne kill team because it looks like you'll need a dedicated box for that, and we don't know what the Sanctifiers will build as well. So, you know, I'll probably update this in a few, like maybe months/years time once we get some more kill teams. But if you're looking to hop in now, this is a great time as a 40k player, because especially if you're trying to keep up with the times competitively, you already have all these models most of the time because a lot of them are very useful in 40k. But otherwise, if you're thinking of taking the dip, it's not as hard as you think, and it may be very easy, and you may find a new fun game that you'd really like to play in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. But that's pretty much it for me today. Please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of this video. Did you find it useful and helpful? And I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below for free, and a affiliate link at Element Games, and a affiliate link and discount code at Crossfire Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. So I'm just going to quickly shout out my patrons. So for my adepts of the crew, I have Tom, Supercow, Sam, Nick, Mercenary Q, Mr. Meatward, Lucas, Jeremiah, Graham, Fangzu, Draken, Dave Meets World, Dan, Dada Goldens, Chris, Amorphium, and then for my veterans of the crew, I have Samdra and Mark. So thank you so much for all your support. It really means a lot to me and helps support the channel. But yeah, this is a video I've wanted to do for a while. I just needed to do some like more research and not be in America to do it. So yeah, it's now part of my way to help new players, as well as trying to get more players into kill team, especially if they're from Warhammer 40,000. But hopefully it's useful. Let me know if there's anything I missed out or what you think like I could also mention. But remember, no matter how big your Warhammer 40,000 collection is, you always have a chance to win as long as you roll a crit.